Have you ever found yourself standing in the baby food aisle, holding a jar in one hand, reading the label, and wondering, is this really what my baby needs? Or maybe you've had a neighbor or even your own adult children toss out advice like, oh, just give them a little cereal in their bottle to help them sleep, and something in your gut whispered, didn't we used to do that years ago? If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Whether you're a proud grandparent lending a helping hand, or you're back in full-on parenting mode later in life, this time around, with a lot more experience and maybe a few more aches in the joints, navigating baby nutrition can feel like a whole new world. And let's be honest, it's filled with confusing advice, changing guidelines, and more baby food options than anyone ever asked for. What makes it even trickier is that some of the advice floating around, passed down over the years from well-meaning friends, family, and even some older parenting books, isn't quite right. In fact, some of the most common things we used to do with babies when it came to feeding have now been proven to be either unhelpful or downright risky. That's exactly why we're having this conversation today. Because understanding what your baby actually needs, especially when it comes to their nutrition, can make all the difference in their growth, their mood, their sleep, and even their immune system. And the truth is, it doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be based on what we now know, not what we've always done. So let's start with one of the most common myths that many of us grew up hearing, and probably even used ourselves at some point. You've probably heard this one. Put rice cereal in the baby's bottle, it'll help them sleep better at night. It sounds reasonable, right? A fuller tummy means fewer wake-ups. That's what we used to think. But the real fact is, babies aren't meant to eat solids that early, especially not from a bottle. When you add cereal to a bottle, not only can it create a choking risk, but it can also mess with a baby's natural hunger and fullness cues. Their tiny tummies are still learning when they're hungry and when they're full. Giving them thickened milk or formula before they're ready might fill them up quickly, but it can lead to overeating, stomach discomfort, or even constipation. And despite the myth, it doesn't usually help them sleep better anyway. You see, baby sleep is more about brain development than a full belly. Those night wakings? They're normal. Frustrating, yes. But a healthy baby waking in the night isn't a problem to fix with food, it's a sign they're growing and developing just as they should. Instead of cereal in the bottle, what babies really need in those early months is breast milk or formula, on demand, at their own pace. When they're around 6 months old and showing the signs of readiness, then it's time to talk about solids, including baby cereals if you choose to use them. But in a spoon, not in a bottle. Now here's another one that might raise a few eyebrows. You shouldn't give babies any common allergenic foods like eggs or peanuts until they're older, just to be safe. That used to be the rule of thumb, and if you followed that advice with your kids decades ago, you weren't doing anything wrong. That's what doctors believed at the time. But today, the science has flipped. Experts now know that introducing common allergens earlier, often around 6 months, depending on the baby, can actually help prevent food allergies. Isn't that something? Of course, we're not talking about handing your baby a spoonful of peanut butter or scrambled eggs on day one. It has to be done slowly, carefully, and only when your baby is developmentally ready. But holding off until the toddler years? That could increase their risk of developing allergies later on. If you're feeling unsure, or if your family has a history of food allergies, it's always wise to check with your pediatrician first. But the point is, the old thinking that delay equals safety? Not anymore. Early exposure, when done properly, is often the better path. It's amazing how much has changed, isn't it? We used to think we were being extra cautious, when in fact, we might have been increasing the very risks we were trying to avoid. That's the power of better research and learning from real-world results. And as grandparents or older parents, embracing these new truths doesn't mean forgetting everything we once did. It means updating our toolbox so we can give today's babies the best possible start. Now let's pause here for just a second and take a breath. Because if you're thinking, wow, I did a lot of these things with my kids, please don't carry any guilt. You did the best you could with the knowledge you had at the time. And honestly, that's what makes you such a powerful figure in your grandchild's life now. You bring love, experience, and a willingness to learn. That combination is golden. So we've started unraveling a couple of these common myths, and already we're seeing how important it is to separate tradition from truth. And not because the old ways were all bad, but because now we have even better ways. Smarter ways. Safer ways. And when it comes to feeding babies, setting them up for strong bodies, healthy habits, and a lifelong relationship with food, it's worth getting it right, even if it means unlearning a few things along the way. Now, let's keep the conversation going, because the more we talk about these long-held beliefs, the more empowered we become to help our little ones grow strong and healthy. And believe me, the next myth is one that catches so many parents and grandparents off guard. It goes something like this: babies need juice or water once they start eating solids to stay hydrated. I can't tell you how often I've heard well-meaning folks say, a little apple juice never hurt anyone, or they need water now, they're not just on milk anymore. It seems harmless. It even sounds logical. But here's the truth: for most babies under 1 year old, water and juice aren't necessary, and in some cases, they can do more harm than good. Let's take juice first. Even the so-called 100% fruit juice may be packed with sugar. That much sugar in a baby's tiny body can lead to tummy troubles, diarrhea, and even contribute to tooth decay once those baby teeth pop through. And unlike a piece of real fruit, juice doesn't offer fiber or much nutrition. It's just sweet liquid that can fill them up and crowd out the calories and nutrients they actually need from breast milk, formula, or solid foods. Now, what about water? It's true that after around 6 months, a few sips of water here and there can be okay, especially in warmer weather or if your baby is eating more solids. But it should be just that, small sips, and only when needed. Before 6 months, babies get all the hydration they need from breast milk or formula. Giving them too much water too early can actually be dangerous. It can upset their electrolyte balance, and in rare cases, lead to a condition called water intoxication. It sounds scary, and it can be, so it's good to be aware. What your baby truly needs in that first year is nutrient-rich fuel, not filler. And that comes from breast milk, formula, and age-appropriate solid foods, not sugary drinks or sippy cups full of juice. If you want to help your grandbaby stay hydrated and healthy, just keep offering regular feedings and wholesome first foods when the time comes. That's more than enough. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. But I raised my kids on watered-down juice and they turned out just fine. And that may be true. But the difference now is, we're not aiming for just fine. We have more information, and with it, the chance to give today's babies the absolute best. A stronger foundation. Fewer risks. Healthier habits from the very start. Let's shift to another myth that's still floating around in many families: chubby babies are healthy babies. I've heard this one since the days of big cloth diapers and bassinets. And yes, there's something irresistibly cute about those roly-poly arms and dimpled knees. No one's denying that. But here's where the myth and the truth start to part ways. While a little baby fat is completely normal, and even expected, especially in the first few months, we now understand that rapid weight gain, particularly when it continues beyond infancy, can set the stage for challenges later in life. Things like childhood obesity, early signs of metabolic issues, and a tough relationship with food. You see, we used to take pride in those big, healthy babies because, in past generations, food insecurity and malnutrition were real concerns. A chubby baby meant they were getting enough to eat. It was comforting. But today, in many parts of the world, we face the opposite issue. Too much, too soon. And often, it's not even about what babies are eating, it's how we're feeding them. Are we rushing them to finish a bottle even when they turn away? Are we offering food to calm fussiness when they might just need a cuddle or a nap? These habits, though lovingly given, can start to confuse babies' internal cues. They begin to eat out of habit or comfort, not hunger. And that's something that can carry over into childhood and even adulthood. So, how do you know if your baby is growing at the right pace? That's where regular checkups come in. Growth charts, developed by pediatricians, track your baby's progress in weight, length, and head size, not just against others, but against themselves. The key is steady growth, not a race to the top of the chart. A baby at the 20th percentile can be just as healthy as one at the 80th, as long as they're following their own curve. And here's the beautiful part: when we focus less on how big a baby looks, and more on how they're feeding, pooping, sleeping, and engaging with the world, we start to see a fuller picture of health. One that goes beyond baby fat and diaper sizes. You know, I once met a grandmother who was worried because her granddaughter didn't have the chubby cheeks she remembered from her own kids. "She looks skinny to me," she said. But after a chat with their pediatrician, she realized that her granddaughter was right on track, bright-eyed, active, sleeping well, and hitting every milestone. She just had a different body type. And that's perfectly okay. Babies, just like adults, come in all shapes and sizes. What matters is that they're growing steadily, developing well, and getting the right balance of nutrients, not that they look like the Gerber baby on the cereal box. So, let's let go of the idea that bigger is always better. Let's focus instead on balance, on healthy feeding habits, and on responding to our babies with presence, not pressure. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the number on the scale, it's about setting them up for a lifetime of wellness. Let's bring this home with one final myth, one that still lingers in conversations at family dinners, playgroups, and even some pediatric waiting rooms. It's the idea that homemade baby food is always better than store-bought. Now, that one might surprise you, especially if you love spending time in the kitchen or grew up making every meal from scratch. And don't get me wrong, there's something deeply satisfying about steaming some carrots, blending them yourself, and serving them up fresh with a little love. But let's take a closer look. This belief, that homemade equals healthier, comes from a good place. After all, you're in control of the ingredients. No additives, no preservatives, no mystery chemicals. And for many families, preparing baby food at home can be a beautiful, nourishing ritual. But here's the honest truth, it's not the only right way to feed a baby. Store-bought baby food today is not what it was 40 years ago. Many of the trusted brands have cleaned up their labels, removed added sugars and salts, and are now offering simple, organic blends with 1 or 2 ingredients. Sweet potatoes, apples, peas, just the basics. And these ready-made options go through rigorous safety testing to make sure they're safe for your baby's sensitive little system. The key isn't where the food comes from, it's what's in it, and how it fits into your baby's overall diet. For some families, especially grandparents or older parents who are juggling more than just baby care, maybe you're managing medications, work, or taking care of your own aging health, it's okay to lean on the convenience of store-bought options. You're not cheating. You're not cutting corners. You're choosing what works best for your situation. On the other hand, if you love the idea of preparing meals from fresh produce, that's wonderful too. Just remember that homemade doesn't automatically mean more nutritious. Sometimes, the store-bought version might actually retain more nutrients, depending on how it's processed and stored. So instead of judging one method over another, let's focus on variety, balance, and following safe food practices. If you're making baby food at home, make sure everything's washed thoroughly, cooked well, and pureed to a smooth, safe texture for baby's age. Avoid adding salt, sugar, honey, or spices early on. And if you're using jars or pouches from the store, just read the labels. Keep it simple. The first ingredients should be the food itself, not a list of things you can't pronounce. What I've learned from talking to so many parents and grandparents over the years is that feeding a baby isn't just about nutrients, it's about connection. It's about sitting face to face, watching them open their tiny mouth, smile, make a mess, or turn their head when they've had enough. That moment, when they trust you to feed them, is powerful. Whether it's a spoonful of your homemade lentil puree or a squeezed pouch from the pantry, the love is the same. The bonding is the same. The value of that moment cannot be overstated. Now, as we wrap up this conversation, I want to leave you with something important. We've walked through some pretty deeply held beliefs today, ideas that may have been passed down for generations. And while it's natural to feel a little resistant to change, especially when it feels like the rules keep shifting, the beauty is that we're not stuck in the past. We're allowed to grow, to learn, and to adapt to what today's babies need. Nutrition during the first year of life is not about perfection, it's about consistency, love, and attentiveness. Whether you're feeding breast milk, formula, solids, or a little bit of everything, the goal is the same: to support your baby's healthy development in a way that feels sustainable and joyful for your family. And let me say this, if you're watching this video as a grandparent, you are a gift. Your experience matters. Your stories matter. The baby you're helping to raise, or the young parent you're supporting, is lucky to have someone in their corner who cares enough to keep learning. This stage, this baby phase, doesn't last long. One day they're drooling over a mashed banana, and the next they're running through the kitchen with peanut butter on their face. So while you have this moment, savor it. Celebrate every new food, every messy bib, every spoonful rejected with a dramatic shake of the head. That's all part of the journey. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's this: you don't need to be perfect to be an incredible caregiver. You just need to be present, open to learning, willing to ask questions, even about the things you thought you already knew. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you found this helpful, I'd love for you to share your own experiences in the comments, maybe an old food tip you learned years ago, or a myth you've now unlearned. Don't forget to give this video a like, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep growing and learning together. And as always, here's to living your best life, and giving the little ones in your care the very best start.